All right. This is that moment of truth where we wait for it. We wait for it to, let's see here. Twitter's already up. Twitter's always up first. Let's see. YouTube, you awake? YouTube's waking up. Rockfin, you awake? I think YouTube might have. Okay, YouTube is awake. What's up, YouTube? Good morning. Rockfin, you're the straggler today. There's Rockfin. There's Rockfin. So today, Twitter came in first. It's always a battle for second. YouTube came in second. YouTube won that battle, and Rockfin came in third. I know some of you, you're like, Rob, we don't care when they wake up at time. But others are like, Ron, we care. We want to know who wins each day. Well, today it was Twitter, YouTube, Rockfin. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. And to everyone checking out the podcast later, what's up? Hope all's well. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron, the interview show for the week. And this is an exciting one. I'm so stoked. But before we go any further, shout out to some of the folks who helped make this show possible. Our friends over at Indie Left. Indie Left is a place to find all the content creators and streamers you know and love. What they do is they curate a list of all types of different journalists, writers, streamers, podcasters, you name it. They curate it. They update it twice a day. To find out everything they got going on and to subscribe to their Discord, go to independentleft.media. So my interview this week, I am super excited about. Some of you guys already know this. For a while now, I have been wanting to do a show about Earthships. I'm intrigued by Earthships. I don't know a lot about them, but we're going to learn a lot more about them today. The small, brief cliff notes for anyone who's like, I don't even know what an Earthship refers to. An Earthship is a house that is made out of pretty much all recycled materials. And we're going to get a better definition here in just a second, but it's made out of all recycled materials and it's meant for off-grid living. So it's pretty much total recycled materials meant for off-grid living. And you can build these things and live in them. It's a pretty intriguing thing. And if you look at pictures of them, they're really freaking cool looking. So I've been wanting to have an episode about Earthships. I've reached out to some folks. Some people got back to me, some didn't. But I haven't been able to find someone who can really talk Earthships. So I found out that a buddy of mine is building Earthships now. And I thought, how perfect. So please welcome to the show. This guy is a comedian out of Nashville. I've been friends with him for years and years. And he is now building Earthships. So we're going to learn everything Earthships with him. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Chad Riden. Chad, what's up, buddy?
America's favorite comedian of all time, Chad Riden. Thank you, Ron. So good to see you.
It is awesome to see you. It's been years. So cool to see you. And I'm so glad you could share. As soon as I saw it online, man, where I saw it, you posted something. I don't know if it was on your Facebook or Twitter or Instagram even, but it was somewhere on social media. I saw pictures and it's like Chad's building Earthships. And I'm like, first of all, not surprised. Second of all, I got to get him on the show to talk about this.
Yeah. So, of everybody you know, who is most likely to go off the grid and disappear?
You would have been in my top 10. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of people I've met throughout especially my years living in a car. There's plenty of people I might have guessed for that, but you would have been if they would have said like who would do it efficiently and who would do something like build an Earthship and pull this off, you would have definitely been in my top 5 people. Like that I would have guessed. Like I'm like Chad Riden would do something like that. The guy who has the vegetable oil powered car.
That's right. That's right.
So let's start basic, man. What is an Earthship?
So it's a brand that has been trademarked. So a lot of people building these things will say, I'm building an Earthship inspired build. So they're not treading on that trademark. But there's an architect named Michael Reynolds who I guess in the late 60s, early 70s, graduated from college, had his degree, and decided to go race motocross so he could get injured intentionally and not go to Vietnam. And he's been experimenting with alternate materials and techniques for construction since then. And there have been many, many failures as he's tried to figure this out. But the purpose of it was to build something using recycled materials, trash that's found around the world, and build something that is sustainable, that has a negative carbon footprint, that also provides everything you need to survive, like shelter. You need food, you need water, you need waste management somehow to deal with your waste and you need electricity, and you need to get rid of your trash. And so those were the basic principles he was trying to achieve. And so he started experimenting with building with aluminum cans and concrete and all this other stuff. And it all kind of came together when he started figuring out like tires are everywhere. He wanted something passive solar. And so he started getting old car tires and pounding them full of earth and using them as thermal bricks to build walls out of those. And that's when he really turned a corner on the design. So it's really, you're building a hobbit house, and you're collecting rainwater. You're using recyclable materials. You have a south facing greenhouse that absorbs the heat of the sun and stores that in the wall and in the house. And then at night or in the winter, it radiates that heat off. So you're not building in HVAC systems. There's no air conditioning. There's no heater. You can build a fireplace if you want, just for fun and aesthetics, but you really don't need it. You have cooling tubes. You have basically culvert tubes that go through an earth berm that draw cold air in, and it's cooled by the earth, and then convection leads that air, the hot air, out of vents in your ceiling or your roof. And so you have this natural convection of air, so you don't really need air conditioning, and you can monitor the temperature and control it with those vents. But the year round, the temperature in these things stays like 65 to 70 degrees, depending upon what you want it to be. And without any kind of electricity to alter the HVAC, to run HVAC or anything like that. So like, that's what really appealed to me. But also they're beautiful. It's a lot of, most people are using Adobe style walls to cover up the tires. There's not exposed tires in your house. A lot of people worry about off gassing and stuff like that, and that really doesn't happen because you're blocking this off, and you're not looking at tires. You're looking at a beautiful Adobe wall. So a lot of people will use bottles and cans to build like honeycomb walls and use less concrete, but then you've got a wall that's kind of DIY glass bricks that are very expensive if you buy them at Lowe's, but if you take a couple liquor bottles and chop them in half and tape them together and build a brick of your own, it's free. And so a lot of people just put a lot of sweat equity in these things. It's a labor intensive. It's not for everybody. You can break your back pounding tires with a sledgehammer for a couple of weeks to build one of these things. But I mean, if you do it and you do it right, you've got solar powered energy. You're collecting rainwater from the roof. You've got it going into a cistern. It's filtered. Your house is plumbed normally. And the water that's used in your sinks and your showers is then the gray water goes into these cells that feed into the greenhouse and water all your plants, your food or your ornamental plants. And then the water from there is used to flush your toilets one last time before that black water goes out into a normal septic system where you have a leach field and you can grow some non-fruiting trees or ornamental horticulture outside. So you're dealing with your waste, and that way you're harvesting your water. The whole thing is off the grid, and it's built. Most of the hardcore people build it out of recyclable materials. So like I've been scavenging around. There's so much construction in Nashville as they knock down beautiful old houses and throw them all the stuff away and build 4 condos in the place of what one used to be one house. And so I can walk around and find, sinks and tubs, and I found a beautiful granite countertop in an alleyway that somebody was throwing away. And so that's going to be part of my house where I'm just scavenging these parts, and I'm hoping to spend as little money as possible on materials. I'm going to have to spend some money on some concrete and some roofing materials, and obviously some wiring and some plumbing materials. But other than that, like, I'm going to try to do it all DIY, hardcore scavenging, recycled stuff.
That is incredible. So
it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, thank you for that very, very thorough answer, man. That's awesome. And you covered a lot of bases.
Yeah.
I feel like you've looked into this before, but
it's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
No, it really is. And some of the things that you covered were like follow-up questions that I had, like just based on some of the reading I've done. So like I want you to dive into a couple things a little more. You mentioned the tires.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've seen online, and I'm sure you've read these similar things of people who are more skeptical of Earthships, is they mentioned the whole, oh, you're breathing in like tire fumes and stuff. Like that's really dangerous, which that's a valid concern.
It's a concern.
what's the process there? I mean, clearly that's not what's happening, I'd imagine. So what?
Right.
How do you diffuse that?
So my understanding is that when tires are exposed to sun, that is when they start off gassing. So what we're doing here is we're finding an area, and you level it out, and then you start laying down tires. You put cardboard into the bottom of the tire, and then you put earth into it, and you pound it with a sledgehammer, and you make a brick. And then you basically use them like cinder blocks and make a wall. Yes.
Just to clarify, because like
Yeah.
I know there's got to be other listeners like myself who are nowhere near as handy as you. When
Okay.
you say earth, you literally just mean like dirt and okay, cool. Just
Dirt.
making sure. All right.
So yeah, so you're building a wall out of these things, and you're using them the way you would cinder blocks, and then you're like I say, you're putting stucco or adobe over that, and so that is sealed off. Like you want to put a layer of concrete over it too, so mice don't dig through the berm and kind of get into your walls and stuff. But you seal that off, and it's not the tires are not exposed to the sun. So like the most you're going to get exposure to off gassing, like when you go to a dock at a lake and there's tires next to the dock that boats bump into, those are off gassing, and it's very dangerous to be breathing air near them. But once you've got a completed Earthship, like sun is not hitting tires and gases are not coming into your home.
So basically there's a layer between the tires and the sun, and then inside another layer between the tires and you.
Correct. So like you build a wall out of these tires, and you backfill with earth to build an earth berm behind, which is really the protection. Like, and you can honestly do this. There's people who build with straw bales and spray concrete over them. That's one method. There's other people using aircrete concrete, or concrete with tiny little particles of styrofoam mixed into it. So like there's a bunch of different ways you can achieve the same thing essentially. But the secret is that earth berm behind this wall that kind of turns it into a hobbit house, where you're using the earth's warmth to heat and cool your home. So that's behind the wall, and then in front of it, like you say, stucco or adobe or whatever. And so it's not like you're not walking through a landfill when you go into your kitchen. It looks like a nice house.
So is the garbage the same situation then? Because I know sometimes like you hear people, like you say Earthships, and people are like, a house made of garbage? Oh my God, that's gross. Is it a similar process there? Like walk me through that.
So a lot of people are using like aluminum cans for other walls, where it's like your doorway, for example, where you would normally, like in a normal constructed house, you would put up studs, 2x4s with lumber, which is extremely expensive right now, and then put in insulation and your wiring and your pipes or whatever, and then cover that up with siding or drywall or some sort of other material. And what they're doing instead is like laying down a little bit of concrete and putting tin cans in a row, and then another layer of concrete and tin cans on top of that, or bottles. And so you're displacing concrete you're using, but still building like a honeycomb wall that's very strong using less concrete. So that's like one method of building. I forget what your question was exactly, but
because I was asking about, like, you know, you were explaining how the tires are not some exposed thing that you're inhaling or anything like that.
Yeah.
I was asking, is it a similar process with, like, say, the garbage?
Okay, so yeah, like another way they're using garbage is like for the ceiling, you put over wire mesh and you soak rags in concrete and lay them over the top, and you build a shell out of rags soaked in concrete. And then people are taking then like when you're finishing that tire wall, there's curves and there's little indentions that you need to fill in to make a flat wall. And so you pack that with like adobe type material, but also tin cans and other stuff that's going to displace concrete. So you can use trash, but it's not like rotting garbage. It's trash that you're then enclosing in adobe type stuff. And you're basically using the trash to displace.
What is adobe type stuff exactly?
It sounds like it's like a mixture of straw and clay and I'm not sure exactly. I've never worked with adobe yet,
Okay.
It's like the traditional methods of using natural materials to make something, an adobe
Okay.
wall.
So it's some kind of like formula of straw and clay
Yeah,
that
there's
mold.
some
Okay.
sort of mixture that is weather resistant and will last a
Okay.
long time.
So that is so interesting. So now we're talking about the climate because you're saying you collect rainwater, you use these panels to kind of like trap heat, and then it releases when you need it, and it keeps these houses at a particular temperature. So is there can you have an earth ship in any climate, or are you kind of limited to the types of climate where you can have it?
That was the selling point, was that you could build these anywhere. Now, he developed these concepts and these techniques in the desert around Taos, New Mexico. So they're very suited for there. Say here in Tennessee, it's much more humid. So if I built one here, I would have to do a lot more work with vapor barriers and worrying about condensation and mold and ventilation and air circulation, because it's just way more humid here. And there's other concerns. Now, my understanding is you can build one of these anywhere. If you wanted to build one in Antarctica, you absolutely could. I think in general they work better in drier climates, but they also have done mission work in the Philippines and more recently in Dominican Republic and Haiti, where it's like, some place that has had hurricanes and knocked down buildings. They've gone and built like schools and stuff using these techniques so that the building will be hurricane proof in the future. And they're using sustainable building techniques that they can then teach the locals, and they could go on and build other structures like this using the same techniques with garbage, because tires are found and readily available around the world. Same thing with cans and bottles. Like, they're filling up landfills. So it's like there's no shortage of that. As there's shortage of drywall and lumber, tires are everywhere, and people are paying to get rid of them. So,
Well, what would you do in, say, a place like, I mean, Southern California, where I live, where we do not get that much rain?
yeah,
I mean, what would you do there?
same deal. So in Taos, you get about 8 inches of rain a year, and what you do is you submerge a couple cisterns into your berm. So you bury these cisterns so they don't freeze, and you can store a lot of water. So the more square footage you have of roof, the more rain you're going to collect. And a lot of people will build like covered garages and other structures to also collect rainwater and funnel that into their cistern, and then filter that 3 or 4 times and make drinking water or other water that's potable that they can use. So even in very arid climates, you can collect enough rainwater to really sustain yourself. It depends upon how big your greenhouse is and how much food production you're really gonna get into as to how much water you're gonna need. So I think with me, I'm building a 2-bedroom Earthship with a very large greenhouse because I'm a gardener and I grow a lot of peppers. I grow my own food, cucumbers and whatnot, and I want to have enough food for myself and another person. So I'm planning on having at least 2 cisterns to start off with, and I'm probably going to have to buy and have water delivered at first and fill up my tanks, and then go off the rainwater that tops it off after that.
So that's always an option for people. You
Of
can
course.
buy. Okay.
Yeah, if you can get water shipped to you, in most places you can at a price, and that's not something I would want to do every year. But I think my first year when I'm first starting out, I'm just going to have to top those off right off the bat and then collect rainwater after that.
So, do you have in an Earthship, do people have running water? Like, do they have
Oh yeah,
faucets, or is it all okay? So there
yeah.
are.
So like you can build a very primitive hut that's like 12 feet wide, and that's the first thing I'm going to build out there on my property here in the spring, is because it'll take me 2 weeks and it'll cost $2,000 total, but I'll have a structure that's winterproof. So I'm going to build like a very primitive hut using these same techniques. That's not going to have a greenhouse, but it'll collect water and it'll shelter me, and it'll be a nice dry little place. But then build my full Earthship connected to that the following year. But you can do that very, very simply, and it doesn't and not spend a lot of money and protect yourself from the elements.
Mm-hmm. But so you would have like just a sink, like a normal house.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's what I meant to say. It's like, yeah, you can plumb the full Earthship is plumbed normally. So you have a regular sink, You have your like a water unit where the water that comes in from your cisterns is filtered, charcoal filter, and I think like a bio filter where it does whatever it takes to kill off any bacteria that may be in the water. So like there's 3 stages of filtering you should do before it's drinkable. And then, but your house is plumbed normally. So you have sinks in your shower and your toilets, and all of that works as any normal house would expect. It's just that gray water that comes out of your sink after you wash your hands or wash your dishes or take a shower, then is going into plants where your little growing garden, where it's filtered through the plants and then used as to flush your toilets. And by the time it gets to your toilets, it doesn't smell. It's not weird. It looks like normal water. And then after that, like it goes out into your septic system. So it's the same stuff used to plumb your home. It's just a different technique and a different routing for your water to reuse it as many times as possible before it leaves the house.
And I'll make a quick announcement here to everyone listening and everyone viewing right now. If you have a question for Chad or just a thought or comment or anything about Earthships, complaint, please do leave a Rockfin tip or a super chat, and I will get to those. We'll get to those. So if you have any questions or if you're thinking about constructing your own Earthship, you'll have a chance to pick Chad's brain a little bit here. So let's get into, you talked about like plumbing. Let's get into electricity now. So I mean, here's like the most obvious question. Like how does something like internet work for someone who's off grid in an Earthship?
Well, for me, I've put a deposit down for Elon Musk's space internet. Like I'm out in the middle of I'm out in the middle of the desert, and so it's either satellite dish or hoping my cell phone gets a signal out there. And so I'm hoping to use his internet. But yeah, I'm going to wire my house normally. I'll have solar panels. I've already got a solar system out there. I've got a couple campers on my property right now, and I've got solar. But I'm going to have quite a few solar panels and a battery of banks, a bank of batteries. And
you're going to get a battery of banks too.
I'm going to have all.
It's only a matter of time, man.
I'm going to have all the things.
You're going to have a bunch of banks. They're all yours.
So a lot of people wire their houses to be DC because it's a little more efficient, and those refrigerators and freezers are more efficient, a little more expensive as well. So I'll probably have a mix of AC and DC circuits in my house, but it'll be professionally wired. So it's like standard wall outlets and switches and the like, just like you would any normal home, and it'll go into a breaker box, and but all that'll come out of my solar power. And I'm also planning on having a little wind power there as well, because it's very windy where I'm at.
So it's all solar powered, but it just operates like regular electricity.
Yeah, so the house will be like I'll have outlets in every room, and I'll have a little Wi-Fi out there, and everything will appear to be like a normal house to the end user, once it's all finished.
That is wow. So I know that in some cases for Earthships, they kind of have communities. Like there's like where it's like instead of just one greenhouse where you're just growing food for you and another person, they actually have a communal greenhouse that presumably everybody's water kind of goes towards, and they kind of feed like a neighborhood. How common is that exactly? I mean, is some of that going on in New Mexico now, or like where is that sort of stuff going on the most in the United States and elsewhere?
I'm not sure about elsewhere. I know that in Taos, like they do have several communities where people there's little plots where people can build, and they don't have to worry about building codes. Like they can just do whatever they want. It's an experimental area where they don't have to worry about meeting codes. Now, I'm going to build everything to code just so my house is future proof. But there's a lot of places out there where you like on a classic Earthship, you're going to want a greenhouse of your own just for the heat deflection in the summer and absorption in the winter, just to make the climate correct. But there are places like they've built basically a student dorm on campus at the Earthship headquarters where, like, I don't know, 30 people can live there, and they're sharing the same structure. It's like bunk beds type situation, but a lot of people in one large structure. So like that's a situation where yes, they're all kind of using the same kitchen and in a shared area with a greenhouse or whatever, but everybody has their own little bed area.
So again, I'm not super hip to this world, man. What is the Earthship headquarters? You just mentioned that. What is that?
So Michael, and if you're not familiar with this at all, I would recommend there's a documentary on Amazon Prime called Garbage Warrior, and it's following Michael Reynolds through his legal battles with Taos County trying to get the permission to build these things essentially. But it also explains a lot of these principles, and it shows this compound. So this guy out in Taos County, it's a desert. It's the Dust Bowl, and so this guy bought up a couple hundred acres, and it is land that nobody else was using or cared about, and so he got it classified, and so he's not having to follow building codes out there. He's got an experimental build zone where he's out there able to build whatever the hell he wants, and it's weird and it's strange, and there's been a lot of failures, and people have sued him. So like if you read up on this, like a lot of people who were really early adopters and maybe lived in or bought some of the earlier houses he built in the late 70s and early 80s, they got mad because like the roofs leaked or something else didn't work right. And it's all things he had to learn by doing. So like every 6 or 7 months, this dude builds a new building like this and improves on his old design. And, by now, 40 years later, it's a pretty good design. He knows what he's doing, but those early ones, they weren't all that great. And so you can read some bad reviews about the old ones,
Oh, and I'm sure tons of mistakes have been made. I mean, it goes without saying because, this guy has been at it, like you mentioned earlier. I mean, he's been at it since the 70s.
Yeah,
and I mean, I knew a little, I knew the basic cliff notes, but I didn't know there's like a designated headquarters and stuff like that.
Yeah, so they've got a visitor center, and if you roll up, it's just outside of Taos. So it's Taos Ski Valley. Like there's so many ski lodges. You're surrounded by mountains, but then that valley, that mesa out in the middle of the desert. He's got a visitor center, and you can walk in and take a tour of the building and see all the systems in action and talk to the people and see how it all works firsthand, and then take a tour. And you can rent, like a lot of the buildings he's built out there are Airbnbs where you can go stay the night in an Earthship that's beautiful and extravagant and just amazing. And way better than any house I've ever lived in. But you can do that overnight, and it's a reasonable, Airbnb fee, and you can experience this firsthand for yourself. But you can also drive around the community and see there's hundreds of houses out there that they've built, and you can drive by and see a lot of them.
How many people in the country right now are living in Earthships? Like do you know?
I don't know that.
Okay, that's not
I really
something
don't. I know that there's at least 500-600 people in these structures in Taos County alone. I mean, they're all over the place. There's a guy who built one here in Gallatin, Tennessee, and I helped him with that a little bit a couple years ago. And so they're, like in most states, I believe you'll be able to find somebody doing something.
That's so interesting. So, and before we totally switch topics, just another thing on the internet thing, because, I know that, that I'm a big municipal broadband nerd, and I know that you kind of are too. Yep. Yeah, no, I know you are too, because we've talked about it before. And I wonder if an organization like the Institute of Local Self-Reliance, if someone like them would find the right contractor who could build legit muni networks, be it fiber or otherwise, for Earthship communities. I mean, that seems like an untapped potential.
Yeah, I'm sure they would appreciate it. There's a lot of people out there who, are kind of little distrustful of government or corporations. So there's a lot of people who just legit do not want to be connected to anything.
So they don't even want internet. They don't even want.
Some of them, some people. Now me, I'm like you. I gotta be. I stream myself. I've got to play video games online like a nerd. I've got a lot of stuff. I got a lot of movies I got to legally download. I need to be connected. So I'm not screwing around. I got to get internet out there for sure. But yeah,
so that could be a task you take on, man. That could
like you say, I'm a big believer in high-speed fiber optic internet as a public utility, like Chattanooga, Tennessee's doing. I've been pushing for that in Tennessee here statewide for a long time, and it's hard because Comcast and AT&T have got a lot of money, and they don't want, and they've got a lot of politicians on their payroll. and like getting this stuff through, there's a lot of state laws and regulations that are keeping it from happening, as you know. So anyway,
But the thing too is like Tennessee, there are more municipal broadband attempts in Tennessee than any other state.
it's
And
wild.
why is that? Well, it's because of Chattanooga.
Chattanooga,
But
dude.
how can you not look at that and be like, why don't we have that? They
Yeah.
pay less for internet than most people, and they have some of the fastest internet,
Yep.
not just in the country,
Yep.
in the freaking world.
Yeah,
And
very
by the way,
successful.
so as an aside, there is someone I wish I could credit the person who said this, but at one point during some random show, somebody commented and they were like, Ron will always find a way, no matter what the topic
Wedge this
is,
into the
to
conversation.
wedge municipal broadband in. And that
Hey.
person, if they're watching right now, they're probably like, he did it again.
Yeah, I'm telling you, like I ran for governor of Tennessee in 2018, and this was one of my main planks of my platform. And people thought I was crazy, but then like the other candidates started picking up on those talking points, and like even Bill Lee, the Republican idiot who got elected governor, was talking about my plan, and he wasn't saying jack about that before. But it's because it makes sense, and they're already doing it in Chattanooga, and it's just undeniable success.
Yeah. It
So-
has 100% success rate. When
Yeah.
you look at like, and this was, by the way, this was not some biased lefty thing. This was freaking Harvard
Right.
that studied like municipal broadband projects versus what big cable's doing. And they
Yeah.
found like 100% of the time you get better internet at a better price. 100%,
Yep.
even with the projects that weren't finished yet,
Mhm.
better internet, better price. So it's beyond a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And it's not a left-right thing. I mean, that's
It
the
really
other thing
isn't.
too. It's like you can argue it from any political persuasion if you wanted
Right.
to. Like if
my
someone
dad
was
is my dad is a huge Trump guy, and I told him about all this, the municipal internet stuff, and he was like, yes. He lives out in the middle of the woods. And he's like, I can't get any commercial company to come out here and run a cable to my house. He's been using a satellite internet for 30 years. He was like, yes. Even my dad, the most libertarian, Trumpy kind of guy there is like, I'm absolutely on board with this. It's
with
like
municipal broadband.
This crosses party lines.
Well, there's that documentary. I forget what it's called, but it was about a small town in North Carolina where they were pushing for municipal broadband. And you hear these, and I'd imagine a lot of these people are probably a little more GOP leaning generally. I'm sure not everybody, that's
Sure.
always the case, but I like these aren't a bunch of, huge socialists or whatever. And they're saying like, yeah, we should have this. This is a public good. This is
It makes sense.
good. Like it just makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, we could go off on that for like hours.
We're on the same page, 100%.
But dude, I mean, one last thing on that though, you should check out the case in the UK where a bunch of farmers laid their own fiber.
Ooh,
They were, dude, you should check that out because you will probably be able to do something similar. These are, I mean, they had just tractors, just general tractors that farmers have. You can tell I don't know much about farming. I'm like the fancy tractors they got, but they laid fiber because they were like, we're sick of what we were offered. Our internet sucks, and it's because we're in a rural area, and we're tired of you guys not giving a shit about us.
Yeah.
So we're laying our own cable. Fuck you, or our own fiber.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So you might be doing something similar out in New Mexico at some point.
Yeah, we'll see. The revolution is just starting, my friend.
So, well, let's get into like a little bit of what drew you to this. So what drew you to Earthships? What made you think this is the way?
So I had a normal house in Hermitage, Tennessee, and I couldn't sell it. We were underwater. This is when the housing market crashed in about 2009 or whatever. We couldn't afford this house. It was too big. We couldn't sell it. The guy next to me had the same floor plan, and he did all these renovations, couldn't get anybody to buy his house. And so like we knew we were going to consolidate our debt onto credit cards, file bankruptcy, do a foreclosure, and get divorced and walk away from the whole steaming mess debt free, which is what we did. But as I'm sitting there in that house thinking about what's next for me, I was like, okay, my favorite part of every house I've ever lived in was the basement. It's cool in the summer. It's warm in the winter. What if I built a house that was just a basement? And I was like, because then I could get a lot and have a basement completely underground. And then like you walk up onto the lot and you just see like a Doctor Who TARDIS sitting on this lot, and you get into the TARDIS, and there's a spiral staircase taking you down into this house, which is underground. Oh, how great. It's like, oh, you're going to need sunlight. So I thought, okay, have a south facing hill slope where you've got sliding glass doors that open up. You can have a nice patio, and you've got sunlight coming in. And if you're going to do that, might as well make it a Hobbit house. And so put a cool Hobbit door there. And it's like I'm spinning out of control, like with this fantasy of building a basement house. And as soon as you start Googling that, it takes you straight to the Earthship concept, because that's essentially what it is you're building a man-made cave that stays the same temperature year round, no matter what. You're just building a basement. And so once I saw all the stuff online about these things and all the YouTube videos, I was like, what? And I was just sold. And so I was planning a tour basically down Interstate 40 from Nashville to Las Vegas and back in 2016. And so I just planned a day off. I was like, this is a little bit out of the way, but we're going to go to Taos and we're going to go check out these Earthships firsthand. And so I just planned and spent a day doing that. Went and saw the visitor center and bounced around town and saw a couple other structures and talked to a bunch of people who've been building these things. And I was just sold. I mean, I was already sold, but this really was the nail in the coffin, where I was like, yes, I'm doing this. I'm absolutely doing this. And so like ever since then,
people who just showed you their Earthships, like people who were just like, come, or is there like a more formal process where it's like you can get like a tutorial if you go out there? Like what's the kind of
they do have an academy. So like the Earthship biotexture company has a whole like teaching people how to do this is one of their main thrusts. So you can, I think it's $1,000, and you're on campus, you're living on campus for a month or two, and they teach you every aspect of production, and they put you to work. Like, it's not for the faint of heart. Like, you got to get out there and do some intensive labor, but you do every single job to build one of these ships. And so they farm out that labor. So you can contract them. If you don't want to build this thing, you just want to have it, you can contract them to design and build you one of these things, and you not touch a hammer. But what they'll do is they'll come out there with their students and the instructors, and they'll have a team that shows up and builds you your house for you. And so that's what they do. So if you wanted to spend that money and go through that class, you could absolutely do that. And I met a bunch of people out there who had done that and were working for them now. And I've got a bunch of friends here in Nashville who had gone and taken that training in one capacity or another, and were had worked for the company or still do, and were now building their own projects, not using the company, not paying them to come do it for them, but DIY, building this thing with themselves and volunteer labor. And that's more what I'm going to do. I'm going to pay a contractor guy to be my lead, my project lead. And I'm going to rely on, and I'm going to pay a couple other people, I'm sure, for their labor, the plumber and the electrician. But by and large, I'm going to do it myself with some help from some friends.
Generally speaking, I mean, how much, and please give a range, like depending on how much you do yourself versus how much you just contract out. What typically could one expect to spend on an Earthship?
You're going to spend a little bit more than the average home in general, but the plus side here is you're not paying any utility bills forever and ever. Amen.
So there's no utility bills whatsoever.
Right. If you do this right, you're getting your electricity and your water and your sewage treated on site for free because of the sweat equity you've put into it and the systems in place. So I forget what it is per square foot. If they build it for you, it's a little expensive. Now for me, I'm going to build a 2-bedroom building with the 2 baths, 2 full bathrooms, and a kitchen and a living room, and this front area, which is the greenhouse. I'm going to build all of that, and I'm budgeting about $45,000 to $50,000, depending upon how bad they hit me at the hardware store for some of these materials I'm definitely going to need. I'm going to scavenge I've already scavenged most of my appliances and stuff like that, fixtures and sinks and stuff like that. So I'm saving, and hardcore people don't spend a dime on any of that, and just go to construction sites and work on construction sites and just take the scraps from other people and use that to build their own home. And that's what I'm all about. That's really my goal, is to do that.
do it as DIY. I mean, that's
Yes.
just that's incredible, dude. Because it's like, I mean, even $45,000, $50,000. Yes, that is an awful lot of money.
Mhm.
But in Los Angeles, where I live, you
Yeah.
want to talk about having a house? That's not even a down payment.
I'm telling you. So I was looking to do this here, and I'm in Nashville, Tennessee right now. I've lived here 21 years. My daughter's here. She just turned 18. I want to stick around. I would love to stick around, honestly, but I can't afford to live here anymore. I was looking to buy property. I was going to build an Earthship here, and I found 3 acres of woods a little bit north of town, and the dude wanted $40,000 for it, and I offered him like 35. Like, we're going back and forth, and I'm like, do you see what you're doing? You're going to spend $40,000 on land and not have nothing on it, where I can go out to the middle of the desert and spend much less, but put that $40,000 into the house itself and not have a mortgage, not have any kind of debt to anybody, pay cash for everything, and have a finished, complete house that provides for me forever. Like, provides food, water, shelter. Like,
It's like cracking the code, dude.
it really is. It's like I'll be set up forever, and I can do whatever I want with freedom. Like, not having a mortgage, not having debt, not having bills every month. Like, has been my ultimate goal. Like I told you, I made financial mistakes. I've got an hour of material about how bad I did everything, and I've learned from those mistakes. I will not be in debt again, ever. Like, this will set me up for life, where I've always got a place that's completely paid for, that takes care of me and my children. My daughter, she'll inherit this, and she may not want to live out there, but she could.
I mean, even if she doesn't, like, it's still hers.
Still,
do you want to hear some things from the viewers? Take a question
always.
or two.
Totally.
All right. So Venetia David, what's up? Hope all is well out in the UK. Venetia David says, it is my secret dream to live in an Earthship. It could solve the housing problem in the UK for sure.
Yes.
That's awesome. I don't think Chad can necessarily speak to the ins and outs over in the UK, but you should definitely check out that documentary. What's it called again? The
Garbage Warrior. It's available on Amazon Prime and other places. I know it's on Prime. I know that somebody has built an Earthship in England. To look around. There is one in London, I'm told. I haven't.
In London?
Mm-hmm. I haven't been out there. But I don't know. But somebody, I read this the other day where somebody said there is one in London. So check it out.
The most congested city
crazy.
Anywhere. I mean, I think Tokyo is probably more than London. But
yeah,
man,
somebody's done it.
I mean, London. I mean, that's like, is there one in New York City?
I don't know that. Now, possibly like on Long Island, somewhere like that. Like, I know that there's a couple of hippie communes on Long Island I've looked into. I don't know. There's somebody doing something somewhere. I would say in New York State for sure, but the city, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, there's got to be a couple out here in Southern California. I don't know if there's any in Los Angeles proper, but there's got to be, somewhere in the Southern California. There's got to
definitely. There definitely is. Yeah.
So interesting. So thank you for that, Venetia. Hope you're well. Chima Madhu, what's up? You say, I remember you and Graham's tip about the frozen orange segments. Yes, for anyone who doesn't remember that, one of my favorite things to do that I highly recommend, you peel the top off the orange, but you leave the bottom orange peel, and then you take that orange and you put it in a freezer, and then after it's frozen, you just kind of eat it like it's a sorbet in a bowl.
Ooh.
And it's great, Chad. You got to do it. You got to do it. You have a freezer on an Earthship, right? You just have a normal. Yeah. Do you just have a normal refrigerator should you choose to?
I will get a DC fridge because they're a little more efficient. But I will get a chest freezer as well because when you open it up, the cold doesn't fall out. So I'll have plenty of room for oranges.
So and Chima recommends this, and this sounds freaking delicious. Try this. Blend those oranges with some cashew milk, lemon juice, and some agave nectar.
Dang.
It'll be something better than a creamsicle.
I didn't know I was going to get recipes out here.
Man, that sounds delicious, doesn't it? Thank you for that, Chima. Yeah. That sounds amazing. And I used to make my own popsicles a lot, and I kind of got out of that habit. I need to get back into it. You ever do that?
I did. My mom was really big into crafts and stuff, and so we had little kits where you pour the stuff in and you put the stick in and then put it in the freezer. And Yeah, we used to do that when I loved that. It was great.
Yeah. Oh, it's the best. I mean, because you
Yeah.
can make them exactly how you want them, and they're a healthier alternative, and they taste great. And so
Yeah.
so thank you very much for that, Chima. Much appreciated. Hope you are well. Carved wooden spoons. Thank you very much for the super chat contribution. And we got a question for Chad here.
Oh.
Have you had any issues with local ordinances? So I mean, I guess like answer that first just for you, and then if you don't mind, like kind of mention anything that you may have heard about secondhand, just things people might run into.
So in general, that is the hurdle. Like you
Mhm.
to get a building permit, you got to have your drawings, you got to get them stamped and blah blah blah, and you really have to pass a lot of inspections. So like the guy that was building his thing out here in Gallatin, Tennessee, had to jump through some hoops and basically convince people that this was okay. Now, out in Taos, there where I'm at, where I've got my property, there are no restrictions, and I can build anything out of anything, and nobody cares. Nobody will ever see it. Um, but you really have to check with your county and state laws and make sure that you're up to code in your city as well. Like you could build a fence that's too high and have them come by and tell you to knock it down. You really have to watch what you're doing. And I've seen some of the builders I've talked to have said like, yes, we do this certain thing so that the building inspector comes and looks at it and checks it off his list. And then when he leaves, we disconnect that, we hook it up the way it's supposed to be to make this work properly, you know? So there's things you can do. You're probably going to have to get a little shady and creative. It's easier to sweet talk people and to convince them that they're doing something progressive for the environment rather than to yell at them. You know, it's easier to say like, look, this is carbon neutral construction. This is, you know, this and that, all these, because it's good. It's not like we're doing something evil here, but you have to convince them that it's good for the environment and it's not going to be destructive or dangerous for you or your neighborhood, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like if you're cutting a few corners here and there, just because of like, because I'd imagine a lot of this red tape, I would guess in most cases it's not even applicable to what Earthships are doing. Like it doesn't even really apply there. It's just like the law that they have to follow.
Yeah.
So if you're tweaking some things, who's gonna like be looking over your shoulder? Like, God, no, the water's not. It's like, dude, I have a totally sustainable house made out of recycled material that's meeting all my needs, and I'm not infringing on anybody. And I
Yeah.
have purchased all of this outright. It is
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah.
If more people live this way, we'd be better off. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty and it's incredibly interesting. And by the way, I real quick, I shared a over on the Rockfin. Fred Edwards shared a link about Earthships over in the UK. So I dropped that over for Venetia over on the YouTube. I dropped that link. I don't know if you saw that, Venetia, but yeah. So that can kind of help you out there. So we're crossing platforms. Folks are communicating. It's good.
Good.
It's good.
Good.
Thank you, Venetia. Thank you, Chima, and thank you to Carve Wooden Spoons for your super chat contributions and your questions. You help keep this show on the air. Chad, where can people go to learn more? And also just plug anything else you want to plug, your own comedy, anything. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much. My name is Chad Riden, Riden. I'm available on all the social media sites at that name. Too dumb to come up with a stage name for myself. If I could do it all over again, I'd make up some bullshit name so people weren't coming by the house. But, you know, whatever. ChadRiden.com is my website. If you can't remember that, fuckthehomeless.com goes to the same place. We're doing a lot of really good work for people who deserve it. So please give a fuck. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not doing a lot of shows right now, but I will in the future. And I've got a lot of stuff online. There's a couple albums out there and certainly t-shirts and other things available and podcasts and whatnot. If you're into comedy, comedynews.org is a website I set up about a decade ago that just kind of tweets out stuff about going on in the comedy world, interviews, news, reviews, and stuff. NashvilleStandup.com is a nonprofit I've been running for the last 20 years here in Nashville. So if you're interested in comedy and you're coming through the area or you live here, give them a yell and look and see what DIY shows are going on. Or we got 3 comedy clubs that are running full time in this town as well. And there's a lot of really funny cats out of Nashville, and Ron's included in that. Ron was here for a good number of years. And so there's a lot of really talented people plugging away out here in Nashville. And so if you're into that, check those boys out over at Nashville Comedy and NashvilleStandup.com. But again, I'm Chad Riden all over the internet. And thank you so much for putting up with my crap.
No, dude, thanks so much for sharing your knowledge on this, and we'll have to keep tabs on your progress, man. We'll have to check in, and hopefully you're gonna get some amazing internet, and we'll be streaming from your Earthship sooner than later.
Yeah, we'll see.
One more time, if you don't mind, where can people go to kind of learn more about Earthships? Like, where do you recommend they really get started?
So earthshipglobal.com is their website. Earthship Biotecture. Michael Reynolds is his name. I would go watch Garbage Warrior on Amazon Prime and just hit YouTube up and search for Earthships. You're going to find videos from all kinds of different people all around the world. And what's great is you're only limited by your creativity and your time. Like it really isn't even a budget thing. Like if you have the time and the idea, you can build it. And a lot of people have built some really cool stuff out there. So just go down that wormhole. You could spend a couple days watching YouTube videos all day long, and it's pretty amazing. It's a wild world of very strange, creative weirdos who kind of are on the same page about a lot of environmental and societal issues. So it's a neat community to be a part of, honestly.
Dude, so interesting, man, and thank you for illuminating us on some of these issues, man. I appreciate it, and we will have you back, and we will track your progress, man. And in the
I love
meantime,
that.
everybody check it out. Go to chadriden.com, go to earthshipglobal.com, check out Garbage Warrior the movie. I need to watch that. I haven't watched it myself. And Chad, thanks so much for doing this, buddy.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Anytime, man. Be well. Peace. That was Chad Riden. Earthships, man. I've been wanting to do that episode for years now. I've been trying to find the right fit. So when I found out, a comedian friend of mine, and I've been friends with Chad for years. I've even been friends with Chad before I moved to Nashville. Yeah, so cool that he's doing that, and we'll definitely track this. It's an interesting topic I've been wanting to learn more about. Glad to finally do it. Guys, before we get out of here, tour dates, I got them. First of all, Los Angeles, February 10th, got a show here locally over at Flappers. Gonna have a lot of cool special guests on that. It's gonna be a fun show. Get your tickets now. That's ronplacone.com, February 10th here in Los Angeles. April, I'm hitting the road. I'm going to Pittsburgh, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Burlington, Vermont, Portland, Maine, Boston, Massachusetts, and New York City. Northeast, I'm coming in the spring, and I'm calling it my Poutine Not Pipelines tour. I'm real excited about that name. ronplacone.com. Grab your tickets now. Can't wait to see you there. And we'll be back on Thursday for the headlines portion. The headlines, Get Your News On With Ron, happens on Thursday, where we'll be going through the news of the week. And Chris Mohan will be joining the show to get me through the headlines. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Thank you again, Venetia and Chima and what was it? Wooden spoons, carved wooden spoons. I love that. I love that handle. Thank you all for your super chat contributions. You help keep the show on the air. And in the meantime, you all know the drill. Lucy, she says meow. I say peace, love, and a general strike. And man, aren't Earthships interesting? See you all on Thursday. Peace.